So unfortunately now, and more, we're going to see our infrastructure kind of falling apart. You're going to see education, the Department of Education kind of falling apart without much supplies. Many supplies. You're going to see, food and nutrition programs kind of looking dull, and you might as well eat cardboard at this point. You're going to see these, highways and all these federal parks kind of deteriorating. You're going to start to see that more and more. You're already right now kind of seeing it more and more, because these federal jobs and these federal roles are very vital to our infrastructure, and put enough people in place to where if something were to begin falling apart, these people could address it in a timely manner. Unfortunately, now that Donald Trump and his administration has kind of cleared the board of people and in these vital roles, we're going to see a infrastructure just falling apart. Once you give that infrastructure and those roles to private companies, private entities, that's when you start to see a major slowing down of production and an increase in the price and cost of those things that are to be done, when the federal government contracts these different companies to do these jobs. Something so simple as maintenance on federal buildings, maintenance on federal parks, maintenance and federal programs, and just government assistance for all these different programs with children, with elderly, with people who are disenfranchised economically. It's going to and people who are sick, as well. And that's what is really, really disturbing about this. Donald Trump has really had taken our country and pretty much pushed it back into the Stone Age. And this is what a lot of people were railing against, saying, don't do this, don't hire this guy as a president, don't vote for him, because if you vote for him and you support this guy, he is going to be so emboldened to destroy it even more. He thought and he thinks that he's doing good for the United States in the economy, but we are seeing absolutely on ground that's a very starkly different perception that we have versus what he says. Because I know he's just trying to gaslight his fan base at this point. They're allowing themselves to be gaslit, and it's just a sad situation. And MAGA is falling apart at the seams, and they're seeing that, like, people are very, very protecting of children, and once you endanger or you show that you do endanger children, even if even if nothing legal comes of this, but what we know is that children were in danger. Young girls were in danger and being exploited. And I think that, and I hope that most Americans are against this, right? But we're seeing that some people are still, on top of that hill with the flag, waving that flag, and everybody's like, did you get the memo? Right? It kind of boggles my mind, but they're staunchly looking at all the evidence and being against it and saying, well, no, this couldn't be Trump. It's made up. Something's going on here. Their hero has been exposed as quite different than what he said he was, right? But we all knew, some of us knew earlier last year, some of us knew what the truth was. And I, for example, on my private social media with my family and everybody that I know, I was railing against it, saying, hey, look, guess what this guy is? And they like laughing emojis, you're brainwashed, you don't know what you're talking about, okay, you lefty, and all these other things like, oh, you have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. So when did you catch Trump derangement syndrome? These kind of things. And now I see a lot of these people not making any comments, not making any posts, because it was always, Donald Trump and his administration. Look how good they're doing. Look how, they're turning America around. And I'm looking at all these federal employees, many that I served with. Many of my friends that were working in the VA aren't working in the VA anymore, and some of them had really serious medical conditions. And a couple of them I kind of lost touch with, and I'm a little bit concerned, because I don't, God forbid, I hope nothing happened, but this is what this guy did. I'm trying to find out whether some of my friends are out on the street. I hope not, but I can't get in touch with them. So, yeah, man, it's scary, scary times. And many of us would like to say, I told you so. But, this is serious enough to where I told you so is not a flex. People aren't flexing. People on the left aren't flexing about this. We're actually very sad because we tried to avert this from happening. We tried to, stare around and change course so this didn't happen, but it did. And many of our family and friends, and some of my family members who are either elderly or who are disabled didn't get their SNAP benefits. Now, what if I wasn't their family member, right? What if? Because there's a lot of people out there in that category that they don't have family. Some of them have died. Some of them just don't have a big family, don't come from a big family. Fortunately enough, they're my family members, so I'm not gonna see to it that they all go without food this month. Even if I have to take a big hit, I will take a big hit to feed my family. I will. But my thing is, I'm worried about those people that don't have family like me or don't have family members like you, perhaps. I hope. And they're not going to be in a good place, and I hope that their community and the people that are around them notice and see to it that they have something to eat. This is very serious, folks, and a lot of people are going to be left without health care. Think about that. Everybody talking about how bad health care is in the United States, and yeah, I get it, but it's about to get far worse. When you have a lot of people not able to access meaningful health care, we're going to experience, the unaliving of a lot of people. And I remember one person specifically, somebody that was my supervisor while working in the military. He said, don't vote for Trump because a lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to die. And this is very serious because he read Project 2025. He read Project 2025 and he said a lot of people are going to die. And a lot of people chimed in with those laughing emojis and said, you don't know what you're talking about. What about, Biden? Biden's far worse than Trump ever will be. And it's not about Biden being worse. It's about who's about to take office. It doesn't matter who was before. That doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter. And that's why when somebody gets into office and blames the last guy, it doesn't do anything but, point the attention to where it doesn't need to be, right? And then we all say, okay, it's Biden's fault, so let's just accept what's going on. No, this individual's, participating in a money grab. He doesn't have to take, a presidential paycheck. And I'll talk more about that later. That's a subject for another video. It's it's a horrible thing that's going on right now. And we need to not be distracted by these emails so much. Let the legal systems and everything else, and, the legislative branch and the judiciary look more into these things. But don't forget to, push on some of these other programs for people to be rehired in these, government institutions, even at the state park or the federal park level, even at this level where you have these vital people that serve in these roles to make sure that people are safe in these parks. in these national parks, in national monuments, because now people aren't safe when they go into these places, and it's a very serious thing when you don't have a forest ranger, right, making sure the area is safe for people to frequent and go hiking, so people don't end up going missing or severely hurting themselves. So really, I mean, these are very serious things. Even education for disabled children, that's taken a substantial hit, and that shouldn't ever be that way. Nothing should ever happen to those young, children who are disabled. And once you pick on them, if I was on one side or the other, if I was on his side, I would have left then. But fortunately, I was never part of him and his, stupid, his stupid plan to wreck the United States. You know, it's unbelievable, unbelievable, and I'm very sad because a lot of my friends are going through some really tough times, and many of them, most of them, for which are veterans. Um, and I don't know what's happening to a lot of these veterans that are suffering from PTSD, because I know that the Veterans Administration is far more slow than it's ever been before. So reach out to somebody who's going through a tough time and try to help them in any way you can. If you can't help them personally, point them in the right direction, because these are unprecedented times. These are really, really hard times that we're going through. And many of us seen this coming, unfortunately, and many of you didn't. And he was going to leave this country like much worse than what it was, because it's a money grab. Absolutely. He was going to improve his own self and his family at your expense. And you see now that he's doing it. I just hope that from now on, many people understand exactly what they're signing up for by reading between the lines and knowing quite a bit more about the individual that you plan on voting for. That's important, because this is horrible what's going on. And many people yet are going to they're going to be injured by this, and possibly even lose their livelihoods and their lives. And it's as serious as that. Your decisions can actually end lives, starve people, make them sick. And I'm going to talk more about that in another video. And I'm going to actually illustrate a few things for people who still claim to be on that side and Christian, which is no shade on Christians. Awesome things they are, about awesome things. And but in supporting this individual is actually counterintuitive to your faith. And I'll speak about that later. That's for another video. But this video is to say, look, hard times are ahead, and he's done so much damage, and we're going to see the foundation's already cracked. We got to find a way to repair it, because all that's going to happen now is just a slow and steady grind while the infrastructure cracks and falls apart more and more now. And I'm just, it's so sad to see this. It's not a good thing. And I'm not going to sit here and make fun of the guy and call him names, because I'm trying to wake people up and saying, hey, look, yeah, he is what he is. But let's focus on what's going on right here and try to rail against this machine and try to say, no, we need to open up these programs again, or else people are going to suffer. I mean, really suffer, guys. I've seen a disabled person, homeless, on the side of the street when I was driving down the highway. And somebody actually stopped to help this person from I think it was an organization, I was very happy to see that. But this person was in a wheelchair, guys. This is serious. It's serious. This guy was in a wheelchair, homeless, under the bridge. And luckily, people that notice it like me, because I stopped and I went around. I was wanting to see what was going on, if I could help this guy in any way, but somebody already beat me to it, which I'm happy to see that. People are taking notice, and they're not just turning a blind eye to it, right? And I've never seen anything like this. And a lot of us, guys, we're trying to warn. We're trying to warn folks, but unfortunately, a lot of us were called lefties, stupid lefties. They want to drink my leftist tears, and some other terrible things. You know, Toxic people. I caught Trump derangement syndrome. I have long form Trump derangement syndrome. And now these people are quiet. These family members and these people, other people that I know and worked with, they're quiet. Blackout, not saying much, not railing against the left, right? Well, now you see what you were warned about, and unfortunately, we're at this point. So let's take a deep breath and get to work. That's all we can do.